Isabelle pushed open the heavy classroom door, her footsteps soft, but the silence that followed was deafening. Heads turned, eyes narrowing. Some leaned closer to whisper, while others simply stared. She could feel their eyes, their judgments pressing down on her. Her throat tightened, and her pulse quickened. What had she done? At 16, Isabelle was used to attention. Her long black hair, always neatly tied, and her smooth skin were impossible to miss. Teachers often stumbled over their words when they called on her, and students either envied or admired her. But none of that mattered to her. What mattered were her books, her grades, and the quiet satisfaction of being the best. Today, though, something was different. She had walked through the school gates like any other day, her uniform crisp, her gaze focused ahead. But the usual murmurs of, "There goes Isabelle," were sharper, their tones not admiration, but something uglier. She ignored them, heading straight to class, her eyes fixed forward. In the classroom, she took her seat at the front, her desk neatly arranged with textbooks and notes. But today, even her usual eagerness to learn couldn't shake the strange atmosphere. The teachers stumbled more than usual, their eyes lingering too long on her face. Isabelle pretended not to notice, focusing on the lessons, her hand still the first to rise. The bell rang, signaling the end of another day. While most students rushed out, Isabelle stayed behind as always. The empty classroom was her sanctuary. She spread her books across the desk, the afternoon light casting a soft glow on the pages. Her pencil moved swiftly, her mind absorbed in the equations before her. The sound of footsteps broke her concentration. "Isabelle?" Ruby's voice came from the doorway. Isabelle looked up to see her classmate standing there, a casual smile on her face. "Hey, Ruby!" Isabelle smiled back, closing her book. "Just finishing up some reading." Ruby strolled in, glancing at the books scattered across the desk. She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You're always studying. If I looked like you, I wouldn't bother. The teachers are practically falling over themselves for you." Isabelle blinked. "What?" Ruby grinned. "Come on, you can't tell me you haven't noticed. Mr. Carter, Mr. Johnson. They'd give you straight as if you just smiled at them." Isabelle's face burned. She opened her mouth to protest, but Ruby waved her off. "Think about it. Why work so hard when you don't have to?" Ruby's eyes sparkled with mischief as she walked out, leaving Isabelle alone with her thoughts. For the first time, doubt crept into Isabelle's mind. She stared at her books, their once comforting presence now tinged with uncertainty. Could it really be that easy? She had always prided herself on earning her success, but now, maybe there was another way. The next morning, Isabelle stood before her mirror, a small makeup kit in hand. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the foundation. She had never needed it before. But today, she applied it carefully, smoothing her skin until it was flawless. A touch of blush, a hint of gloss, and her hair loose over her shoulders. She barely recognized the girl in the mirror. As she walked through the school gates, the change was immediate. More heads turned, the whispers grew louder, and Isabelle could feel the weight of every gaze. Even the teachers, usually so composed, faltered when she passed. In English class, Mr. Carter handed out a quiz. Isabelle hadn't prepared, but as the papers were collected, she smiled at him, a smile that lingered just a moment too long. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "I hope I did well." His face flushed. "You always do, Isabelle." The next day, when the quizzes were returned, Isabelle's heart raced as she unfolded the paper. A perfect score stared back at her. She knew she hadn't earned it. Ruby was right. From then on, Isabelle tested her new power. A smile here, a compliment there, and her grades seemed to take care of themselves. Felt easy, too easy. For the first time in years, she wasn't buried in books late at night, wasn't stressed about the next exam. But with each unearned grade, the knot in her stomach tightened. Isabelle walked down the school hallway, her head held high, though inside her chest felt tight. The familiar clatter of lockers and the hum of conversation filled the air, but she kept her eyes forward. Her hair, now in simple ponytails, swung gently with each step, a far cry from the elaborate style she'd once worn. The makeup-free face she showed the world felt almost like a mask, though it was just her bare skin. She could feel the stares. Whispers followed her like a shadow. Girls who had once flocked to her now stood in tight groups, murmuring. Isabelle clenched her fists but kept moving. She didn't need to hear their words to know what they were saying. They had seen through the charm. They had seen what she had become. In class, she slid into her seat, ignoring the eyes of her teachers. Mr. Johnson stood at the front, his gaze lingering on her a little too long before he cleared his throat and began the lesson. Isabelle kept her eyes on her notebook, determined not to meet his stare. The words from the previous day echoed in her mind, words she couldn't shake. Deal with her outside school premises. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to write. Each word on the page felt heavy, like a weight pulling her down. At lunch, she avoided her usual spot, choosing a quiet corner of the courtyard instead. She hadn't told Ruby about her plan. Ruby would only try to change her mind. But Isabelle had decided. No more shortcuts. No more favors. The afternoon dragged on, and by the final bell, Isabelle felt drained. She packed her bag slowly, the room emptying around her. As she stepped out of the classroom, she heard her name. Isabelle. She froze, recognizing the voice. Ruby leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her eyes sharp and calculating. "You're really going through with this, huh?" Ruby asked, her voice light but edged with something darker. Isabelle met her gaze, her own steady. "I am. It's over." Ruby's lips curled into a smirk. "Good luck with that." Without another word, Isabelle turned and walked away, but Ruby's laughter echoed in her ears. It wasn't the carefree laugh of a friend. It was something else entirely. Something cold. That evening, Isabelle sat by her window, the pale light of the moon casting shadows across her room. She had taken a step, but the path ahead felt uncertain, and she knew Ruby wouldn't make it easy for her to leave this behind. The moment Isabelle stepped onto the school grounds, something felt off. She glanced around, noticing students huddled in small groups, their whispers faint but sharp. Eyes darted towards her, fingers pointed, and her stomach knotted tighter with each step. Reaching her classroom, Isabelle felt the heavy silence as she pushed open the door. Conversations stopped. All eyes were on her now, a mix of sneers and sad looks. Her pulse quickened. What was happening? Ruby, always the loudest, leaned back in her chair and spoke, voice dripping with malice. "Look who it is," she started. "Our precious teacher's pet. Or should I say, little hoe?" The words hit like a punch. Isabelle flinched, her mind racing. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking. Ruby stood, her smirk growing. "Oh, don't play dumb, Isabelle. Everyone knows how you've been earning those grades, sleeping with the teachers. That's a new low, even for you." Isabelle's heart pounded, the room tilting as she tried to find her voice. "That's not true," she gasped. "I never," but her voice seemed drowned out, lost in the snickers and stares of her classmates. Then, the sharp click of shoes against the floor announced Mr. Joel's arrival. His face was stiff as he stood in the doorway, and his voice cut through the tension. "Isabelle, come with me. Now." Each step down the hall felt like a lifetime. Eyes followed them, whispers trailing behind like shadows. Isabelle's vision blurred with unshed tears. Inside the office, Mr. Joel wasted no time. "I've heard some disturbing things, Isabelle. Serious accusations about your behavior with male teachers." Her breath caught. "It's not true," she whispered, voice trembling. I tried to use my smile, maybe, but nothing else. I swear." His expression remained cold, unmoved. "True or not, the damage is done. Parents are furious. We can't keep you here." The floor beneath Isabelle seemed to vanish. "What are you saying?" A heavy sigh escaped him. "You're being expelled from Makerere College." The words slammed into her. Expelled. Just like that, everything crumbled. Her grades, her reputation, her future. As she stumbled out of the office, her eyes caught Ruby's smirk in the hallway. Isabelle froze, realization flooding in like ice. Ruby had done this. The betrayal was complete. The days after blurred into heated arguments and tearful silences at home. Her father's voice was thick with disappointment. "We didn't raise you for this," he said quietly. Her mother, more practical, moved to action. "We'll find another school," she insisted. "You can't let this ruin everything." After what felt like endless searches and rejection letters, they found a place for her. Not at another prestigious school, but at Naalia High, a public school far removed from the polished halls of Makerere. Standing at the entrance on her first day, Isabelle felt smaller, unsure. The girl who once had the world at her feet was gone. This was someone new, someone still finding her way. But as she took a breath and stepped forward, a quiet resolve settled in her heart. She would start over. She would prove, not just to them, but to herself, that she was more than what they thought. If this story resonated with you and you're looking for more uplifting and inspiring tales, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, let's explore stories that highlight the incredible strength of the human spirit and the blessings life brings. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm excited to share more stories with you in the next video. Remember, embrace the positivity around you and believe in the incredible beauty of life. Let's keep inspiring one another. Watch out for part 2, where Isabelle's journey at Naalia High School unfolds with new challenges, unexpected twists, and a chance at redemption.